ladies and gentlemen, and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's video, we are going to be reviving an age-old series for this channel. And that series is The Easy Fix. So I don't believe I've done an entry into this series since probably within the first year of my channel's existence. And the concept for these videos is quite simple. I will talk about a movie, a series, or a franchise that may be good but not great, or bad and not very good at all. But how all that could be turned around with a few easy fixes. So those properties could have been taken from bad to good or even good to great. So I always planned to revive this series at some point, but it really wasn't meant to be for quite some time. I was considering even waiting until after all of the Christmas festivities and into the new year. But the movie that I'm going to be talking about today inspired me to bring it back much sooner than originally anticipated. Because this movie has been on my mind for weeks now, but for all the wrong reasons. So I had to bring this series back now because I just had to talk about it. And that movie is, which you would have already known because you clicked on the video, Halloween Kills. And here's the thing about Halloween Kills, I don't hate the movie by any means. If you watched my recently released Halloween franchise ranking, then you'd know I actually had it up on the top half of the list. So with it not even being my least favorite Halloween movie, it's definitely not the worst movie I've ever seen or anything by any means. However, the reason that this movie deserves an easy fix is because of just how damn excited I was for it. This was probably in my top 3 most anticipated for this entire year because of how much I loved Halloween 2018. And the trailers absolutely nailed it. It was exactly what I was hoping this movie was going to be, or so I thought. And this video is going to work roughly how the old easy fixes used to, which means that I'm going to discuss the good things or the things that I liked first, then I'll get into the things that I don't like and the easy fixes that could have changed all that. Now, before we hop into the real meat of the video, I just wanted to issue a major spoiler warning. Because yes, I will be talking pretty in-depth about Halloween Kills, so if you haven't seen it already, you have been warned. Alright, so first let's talk about the things that I actually really liked about this movie. Firstly, Michael Myers, obviously. For those of you who don't know, he is my favorite of the slashers. And by slashers, I mean your Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, Leatherface, Ghostface, Chucky, so on and so forth. And out of all of the ones we have gotten over the countless decades, Michael Myers is by far my favorite. And this new version that they have brought to the big screen with Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills is my favorite iteration of the character. The next big thing that I liked about this movie is the kills from Halloween Kills. It absolutely lives up to the name. Because these kills are frequent, brutal, violent, and very gory. After that, I loved the score as expected. Because returning from scoring the 2018 movie are John Carpenter, the original creator, his son Cody, and Daniel A. Davies. I don't like it quite as much as the 2018 score, but they still did a damn fine job. Another huge positive that this movie has going for it is the way that it shows how much of an effect Michael Myers has had on the town of Haddonfield, causing all of this chaos, mass hysteria, and panic. Next is the flashback bits that we get in this movie. They looked absolutely amazing, identical to the look and feel of the original movie. And the fact that this Loomis was entirely practical when this entire time I thought that they CGI'd him or just used old footage blows my freaking mind. And the last thing that I really enjoyed about this movie is Laurie and Officer Hawkins' relationship building. I just thought it was so sweet and it actually really worked for me. Now on to the dislikes for this movie, and again, when I'm talking about dislikes, well, they are just general dislikes, but they're also things that I felt could have been very easily fixed. Firstly is sidelining the Strodes. Laurie spends the entire movie in the hospital barely able to move. Karen, her daughter, spends the entire movie in the hospital with her up until the very end. And then Allison just runs off on a little adventure with her boyfriend and her boyfriend's dad, and 2 barely does anything until the end. The next thing is that they spend a large portion of this movie chasing around some dude that is very evidently not Michael Myers. Michael Myers in these movies is like a 6'2" slim built dude. And the guy they're chasing around is like 5'5" and just not the same body type at all as Michael Myers. It literally makes no sense and it takes up such a large portion of the runtime. Next is the fact that it was admittedly a very cool idea to bring back characters from the original movie. But they definitely should have pulled a Dr. Sleep and recasted them and actually gave them something to do. I love how it shows that it's become tradition for these characters to get back together on Halloween in order to, commemorate and grieve and just kind of see each other once a year at the very least. But after that, they then just run around chasing Michael Myers and dying. Next is that the vast majority of the dialogue is rough. Basically anything not out of Laurie's mouth or scenes with her is just not very good at all. Little thing that I want to mention is that the story in general is not good. And for my last easy fix, it is very, very simple. Just don't make Michael Myers this unkillable machine. I love the mysticism of his face. I love all of that about the character. It's part of the reason why he is my favorite of the slashers. But I also like how they made him more human in this entry. I mean, I get that the dude took 6 shots in the first movie, but someone can actually survive that. And he definitely has a bit of wear and tear on him after his years in that mental hospital. The damage that he took in Halloween 2018, still, again, if someone was determined enough or, purely and simply evil like this guy is, that can definitely happen. But this was just too much. So now he's taken on this sort of Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger-like zombie sort of character that just can't die and will be brought back to life time and time again. But as I said in the beginning, this video is all about the easy fixes. The simple things that they could have done to change all of the dislikes that I just mentioned. So really, these types of videos aren't meant to bash these movies or series or franchises or whatever I decide to cover, but instead they're meant to be constructive criticism styled videos. Because I'm not just bashing the movie mercilessly and then calling it a day, I'm offering up my suggestions as to what they could have done to have fixed these issues. So the first easy fix is that if they are going to sideline Laurie the entire movie, then at the very least they could have made Karen and Allison the stars. Allison just complains about having to stay at the hospital, so she runs off to be with her boyfriend who she just had a massive fight with, and her boyfriend's dad because, I don't know, she's mourning her father's loss or something. I mean, in general, they sort of just gloss over her father's death and Karen's husband's death, like they mention it a couple times, but they don't really show a ton, like Karen cries and stuff, I guess. But regardless, they also just have Karen stay at the hospital with Laurie for, again, basically the entire runtime. They could have very easily given these two ladies a time to shine in the spotlight and made them just as badass as Laurie. I mean, they could have been the ones leading the charge, leading the hunt for Michael Myers. But instead, they take a major backseat to basically just the town of Haddonfield. So just as an example, for those new to the series, that is my fix for them sidelining the Strodes. The next fix is that they should have just cut that dude and the entire weird subplot completely out of the movie. I understand its significance and the whole monsters creating monsters thing that they were going for. You know, the mass hysteria of the mob and the mass panic. And I get that they wanted to show all of that and the effect that Michael Myers has had on this town and its people, but there are definitely more organic ways of going about it than having them chase this random patient that got out around the hospital and really around the whole town for a very large portion of the runtime. They could have just had the mob against the police, because that's another thing. The police are barely featured. They're sort of just trying to keep the peace in the hospital and not doing a very good job. Or they could have had the mob turning against one another, or they could have just had what I thought they were going to do and had them actually chasing down Michael Myers as he goes on his killing spree. The next easy fix is exactly what I stated earlier, and they definitely should have just recasted the characters that they brought back. They did it with Anthony Michael Hall as Tommy Doyle and Robert Longstreet as Lonnie, and they were very easily the two best returning characters. They should have recasted all of the returning characters and then actually gave them something to do. The only one that actually does anything is Tommy, and all he does is run around with a bat and get the crowd fired up. If they were going to put such a heavy emphasis on these characters and really make them the stars over the Strodes, then just like my last suggestion, they should have been the ones leading the charge. They are the survivors of Michael Myers, the boogeyman, the shape from that original Halloween night. So they should have been the ones that people look to for inspiration and for leadership. But instead, they run around off on their own and literally just all get killed. Not to mention, you know it's bad when two pointless nobody characters like Little John and Big John get more screen time than the heavily advertised returning characters. The second last bit for me that was a dislike was basically all of the dialogue. And look, I get it. I know that it's a slasher movie. And I get that this Halloween franchise has never been known for its amazing writing, but I felt that Halloween 2018 actually did a pretty damn good job in the dialogue department, except for the whole grandmother thing. No one calls their grandmother grandmother. But for this movie, Halloween Kills, it was just not it. So many of these lines were cringeworthy and beyond cheesy, and it just made it so difficult to believe that anything that was coming out of their mouths was natural, which in turn made a lot of the performances feel so wooden. After that, I wanted to talk about the story once again, because the story overall was just really lacking. It definitely suffers from some major middle movie syndrome. It's the second entry into a modern-day trilogy for this franchise, and it is very evident to me that they really did not know what to do with this entry. It quite literally is just Michael going around killing a bunch of folks and Laurie sitting in a hospital. And now word is going around that Halloween Ends takes place 4 years after Halloween Kills. With how this movie goes and how this movie ends, I'm very, very confused by this time jump. I really don't have a suggestion for this one other than that it just needed to take a bit more time with it. Someone, literally anyone that read through this screenplay should have stopped and said, okay, cool, Michael kills people, but like, what happens? Because literally nothing happens. There's no story progression, character progression, or anything at all. There's nothing leading us to the next one aside from the fact that Michael and Laurie are still alive and we know we're getting another one. They should have just put more work into making sure it flowed more naturally into Ends. Because I found that the opening for this movie flowed seamlessly with the end of Halloween 2018. I mean, it picks up literally minutes from where we left off. And that part I thought was magnificently well done because it made it feel like one long flowing story. But then once again, this portion of the story just feels like nothing happens. And my last dislike is the fact that they've once again turned Michael Myers into this indestructible, unkillable being. I mean, is there really a man under that mask at all? This dude gets stabbed with a pitchfork, curb stomped on a set of stairs, shot like 4 or 6 times, beat by a mob with bats and 2x4s, and then stabbed in his freaking spinal cord or some shit. Then he just hops up and kills a bunch of people like it's nothing, and then somehow manages to make it back to that house without anybody seeing and murders Karen, or at least we think murders Karen. And nobody notices apparently. And I just simply don't like that aspect of the character, so the fact that he took all this damage and then just got up and did his usual thing really did bother me. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my easy fixes. And while you're down there, feel free to suggest what easy fix you'd like to see next, or suggest other easy fixes for this movie. Do you agree with my easy fixes? Do you agree with my dislikes, my likes? Let me know. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and if you'd like to see more content, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing that little bell icon, that way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe, thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.